alive.
That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah, brother. Oh, boy. I wonder how that guy got his voice. What's his name?
Macho Man Randy Savage?
Yeah, that's the one. Oh, yeah, brother. The cream rises to the top, brother.
That's pretty good, man. I mean, yeah. Certainly that's not his real voice. Certainly he's putting on a certain like affect to do that, right? It's like a stage presence thing.
We unfortunately don't have the opportunity to ask him.
Yeah, he died a couple years ago, didn't he?
Was it a car crash?
I don't think so. I'm not sure.
Is it? I remember. I'm gonna look this up, but before I do,
get Leslie on the horn. He'll tell us all about him.
Is this like another musician you guys know?
You know, Macho Man Randy Savage.
Macho Man Randy Savage.
You can't stop saying it. You can't just keep saying Macho Man Randy Savage at me. I have rights, okay?
I don't remember. I don't know anything about wrestling, but I know that guy. But before I look it up, to my memory, he had like a '98 Cherokee or something like that.
Wait, are we really stupid? Did he actually die, or are we thinking of Roddy Piper?
No, I don't know what that is, but Randy Savage is definitely dead. Yeah, died in 2011.
Oh, wow.
In Seminole, Florida. Oh yeah. Let's see. I don't mean to be insensitive. He had a Jeep Wrangler. Wow. He died at age 58 after having a sudden heart attack while driving with his wife.
Oh, that's awful.
That's no good.
Oh, yeah. They thought he had been killed in the collision. Oh, okay. Well, autopsy performed by the medical examiner office found he had an enlarged heart and advanced coronary heart artery disease. Yeah, I mean, look.
This is awful.
You do fucking roids. Why are we talking about this?
You guys started it. I didn't even know who this man is, and now I know he had a tragic death.
I don't know.
Did his wife live?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, this is weird.
This is weird.
Savage was cremated. His ashes were placed under a favorite tree on his property. 10 days before his death, he had asked his brother to pour the ashes of his dog in the same spot. I don't know why, but I could fucking cry reading that. There's no more pure love than that of a dog. Oh, that's really sweet. Good evening, guys. Sorry, we recording? Fuck. I didn't want to talk. I wanted to like dump on Michael Bloomberg or something, man. Fucking talking about Macho Man Randy's. Oh, Michael Bloomberg.
I want to know what's the next move with James Woods.
Oh, speaking of which, yeah, I need to change my display name back to Chris and away from Google James Woods pedophile before I get before I either get banned or sued.
Yeah, good idea.
I'm gonna do that right now.
Yeah, you should probably do that.
You know, I'm just encouraging people to use the search function. I'm not saying anything myself. I'm not making any allegations. You know. I'm just saying, perhaps if you're not familiar with the topic, Googling James Woods pedophile would be an interesting read for you.
It's actually really fucked up, the stories, isn't it? Like soliciting girls. You know what? Let's not. Before we get anything that's admissible, let's just move on. Oh, whoops. If I'm going down, it's not James Woods. It's going to take me down.
It's really funny how thin-skinned he is. And like that's actually the second time that I've done that. Like I did that same thing on my old account where I just literally like the same reply, just like LOL, remember when you used to be in movies? And he did the exact same thing where he like quote tweeted me and it was like, remember when you used to be living under the bridge, fucking wearing knee pads, sucking dick or something, and like hashtag Instablock, and they did the same thing. And it was like, and then I had like the same thing is happening now where I just have like a full day of just his hilarious defenders DMing me and replying to all my posts. It's really good.
What is the anatomy of a James Woods fanboy? Really? I mean, like, I know we got this with all like the Bezos tweets and stuff, the stuff that went viral where people were like defending it, but I can ostensibly understand that because, you know, we've all grown up under capitalism and they don't want to believe that there's, you know, an endemic flaw with the system and stuff. But like James Woods is the hill you'd want to die on?
Oh, I mean, he's their hero, you know, in like, you know, liberal trash Hollywood. He is the one who's brave enough to, you know, stand in support of President Trump. And as he claims to be blacklisted for it, which I think is hilarious. I mean, there's no washed up actor who has it better than James Woods because he gets to just pretend that he's being like blacklisted or something and not that he's just actually washed up.
I mean, you know, if we're talking popular conservative Hollywood dudes, I mean, it's like him,
Scott Baio,
Sinise, Scott Baio,
John Voight.
Robert Davi.
My favorite was for a while, and this was like when I was, a relatively small account, and I think it was before I even really interacted with you guys or anything. I would just reply to every time John Voight would post something with the Baby Geniuses 2. Like, they would just be like, dude, you were in this fucking movie. Like, you never get to say anything ever again. Like, as a serious person. Trump gave him a medal in the fucking White House,
And he did a little
dude.
dance.
Yeah.
Did you see the little dance?
Yeah,
It was
yeah,
fantastic.
yeah. Did they play? Am I like just having some weird fucking fever dream, or did they play the like Harry Nilsson theme music from Midnight Cowboy?
Dude.
And he said something like, Trump was like, Midnight Cowboy, great film. like he ever
Seriously?
fucking watched it.
Okay, yeah. Donald Trump does not have the emotional depth to fucking understand Midnight Cowboy. He's probably like, yeah, a guy from Texas wanted to come to the city, make a name for himself. He came, he made a friend, and then moved to Miami.
Well, no, in fact, actually, on the topic of Trump and movies, I believe the only story I've ever heard about him, watching a movie or any sort of reflection of the type of movies he likes was there was some article back in like the 90s, and someone was like on his, like flying on his jet with them or whatever, interviewing him, and it doesn't say which son it was, but it would have been when they were children. It's either, I don't know if it's Eric or Don Jr., but like it mentions in the article that like he had a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie on, and he had one of his sons just fast forward, like every time there was talking, he would just have his son fast forward into the next fight scene, and then he would watch the fight scene, and he would just have the kid fast forward to the next fight scene. Like that's the only thing he was interested in watching was to the fight scenes in a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie.
Chris, you said it right. I think it was like the tweet that you had about that Donald Trump has never appreciated music or any piece of art.
He
ever.
doesn't listen to any music. I'm 100% certain of that.
I literally can't even fathom an existence where that would be the case.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can. I think it would be kind of liberating for him.
What do you mean?
No, I mean that I can't imagine somebody not listening to music.
Yeah, no, again, I can. I'm just gonna say.
Well, you're kind of the same, yeah. Yeah, maybe Donald Trump also only listens to like 90s video game soundtracks and stuff like that.
Yeah. He probably listens to like the Home Alone Game Boy game soundtrack.
James Woods though, not a bad actor. In fact, I was thinking today about perhaps my favorite James Woods movie is I liked him in Casino, particularly the scene, and I was thinking about it a lot today. You know the scene in Casino where he just gets the fucking shit kicked out of him in that motel parking lot and then gets thrown in the back in the trunk of a car? Yeah, that scene's really cool. That's my favorite James Woods scene, I think. All right.
I see where this is going. Fuck, man. Came in like a Trojan horse on that one. Jesus Christ. God damn it! I was you had me distracted because I was thinking about Trump listening to video game music. Hilltop Zone, folks, that's a great track. Sonic the Hedgehog. I like the one, folks, that goes do 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 do. Sonic had some jams, man.
He definitely calls like video games Mario. He's one of those guys. He's like, you're just playing Mario.
He calls any video game system, regardless of what it is, a Nintendo.
Yeah, for sure, 100%.
He's from New York, so he would say it's Super Mario Brothers.
That's right. That's how my dad says it.
I'm gonna lead into one of my favorite bits from the Super Mario Brothers film, which someday I want to do like a long form deep dive analysis on.
Same.
Okay. Is that the first bad guy that the Mario Brothers encounter is like a sleazy mafia connected New York City business like real estate developer named Scapelli.
Oh boy.
And like they're like the people that like in the very beginning of the film there's at least one moment where Bob Hoskins is like Scapelli because he keeps like undercutting, because they're like good plumbers, and so like Scapelli keeps like using mafioso tactics to like get them out of plumbing jobs, or like Scapelli's van gets to the job first or whatever. And at the very end of the movie, Scapelli gets turned into a chimpanzee by King Koopa with the de-evolution gun. Anyway, it's not really the the point I wanted to get on right here. I don't remember what I was trying to say, but it's just one of my more enjoyable parts of the film.
He's just trying to dovetail in something we haven't done in a long time, which is anti-Italian racism.
I just think it's funny that they added that character. Like, the whole movie is just a clusterfuck of nonsense that they're trying to shoehorn into this like non-existent Mario canon by naming the different characters things. But they just invent a whole new guy who's just like an Italian guy, like, hey, I'm Scapelli. And he's like the Mario nemesis. It's just really funny to me.
Pitting Italians against Italians. I could see what they were going for there. It's so funny because Bob Hoskins has like he's like a famously a super thick Cockney, like East London Cockney accent. And he like nails it on the accents. It's pretty good because if you listen to him, he's like, no, not do it. I don't know. I'm not going to do fucking Cockney accent.
That was pretty good. I could see that going places.
No, I think it was more like, what the fuck is that guy's name?
Statham?
He was in The Departed. No. Ray Winston. Ray Winston. Yeah, Ray Winston. Yeah, do it, Ray Winston.
Bob Hoskins' Cockney accent comes out in a very nice way in a little film I like called Enemy at the Gates that depicts the Battle of Stalingrad and the great hero, Soviet hero Vasily Zaitsev, the sniper. And Bob Hoskins plays Khrushchev in that film.
Really?
And there are a number of scenes where he's like shouting on the phone about shitting in your pants. And it's really, really amazing.
Good for him.
Big recommendation. Enemy at the Gates.
Who else was in that? I remember that movie. That came out like the late 90s, early 2000s, right? I'm pretty sure I saw that in theaters with my parents.
Yeah, Jude Law, Joseph Fiennes, Rachel Weisz, Ed Harris plays the Nazi sniper, Major Koenig. It's a great film.
I don't think enough people talk about how fucking crazy Ed Harris is.
Ed Harris is great. That's who James Woods wishes he was.
Yeah.
You should make a new sock puppet account and tell him that.
You'll never be Ed Harris. You'll never be in the history of violence, James Woods. But that's that clip with Ed Harris doing the press briefing for the history of violence. I don't even think I saw the movie. Whatever. Pissing off film Twitter again now. But like where he smashed a glass behind him, like sitting in front of the press. He's like, what's violence? What is that? What is that? What's violence? Is it this? And he like smashes his fist on the table. Is it this? And he takes his glass of water on, like, you know, from the press briefing, he just throws it behind him and it just shatters. And everybody just went quiet because they didn't know what the fuck he was doing. They thought he was really angry. And I think he was. I think the gentleman's wound a tad tight.
So I still don't have heat here at my house.
That sucks, man.
Yeah. Like, I think I mentioned it last week. Like, finally the landlord sent a maintenance guy by, like, a couple days ago, I think on Monday, and they supposedly fixed it. Like, I had heat for, like, a day. Like, when the maintenance guy left, it was working, and, like, now it's freezing again. So I actually went to, I went over to Big Lots, and I was gonna get, like, a space heater, and I got the cheapest one they have, and it was $20, and, like, in retrospect, maybe buying one made out of plastic wasn't, the best call, because I came home and I plugged it in my room and I turned it on and it literally immediately started smelling funny, and like literally in less than a minute had set off my smoke detector. So
Chris, did you notice on the side of the box, did it say Lockheed Martin by any chance?
No, it says, I'm looking at it right now, perhaps even worse, it doesn't have any visible brand name.
Oh, no.
But no, it's actually the reason I got it is because it looks, well, obviously, first of all, it was the cheapest, but it looks, it's like designed very similarly to a space heater. I'm going to give a little shout out here to my buddy from Richmond, Matt Byram. I know he's a listener to the show, but many years ago.
Oh, Matt, I know Matt. He's awesome.
No, I'm not sure you do.
No, on Twitter, he's like,
oh, okay. I think I've pointed it out to you before. Yeah.
No, I know who he is. Like every once in a while, we interact. He's cool.
Oh, I see. Yeah, no, he's a good guy. But many years ago, he gave me a space heater with the same sort of design, and it worked very well to heat a room, and never set off the smoke detectors. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on with this one. And it's funny in retrospect. Like when I bought the space heater, the woman who rung me up at Big Lots, and like I had my headphones in, I just wanted to get out of there. Like I probably should have stopped and asked her what she meant, but she said save the receipt for that.
Are you serious?
And like, I thought about then, like, should I be like, well, wait a second, what do you know about this? You know,
Is it perhaps you had gone into the aisle that went to electronics without any UL or CE certification, and that tends to propose a problem?
Yeah. So I don't know. I got to get another. I mean, whatever space heater. I guess I'll shell out for another one. Like, because whichever one I was gonna get, like my plan was already to just return it anyway once my heat is fixed. You know what I'm saying? Like I was just gonna use it.
Yes.
Just gonna use it until they fix my heat and then return it. So I mean, that's, you know, I don't plan on, like, you know, spending any money long term on this anyway. So I can maybe invest a little bit more and go up to the, you know, the next level, which was like a $40 space heater. We'll see. Maybe that one will actually burn the house down.
No, please. Please, no. That's a fucking smart way to do it, though. I mean, obviously, we've said this before. If there's any opportunity for you at all to game the system and take from corporations or otherwise, you know, just take back the value that you're providing the system in general, please fucking do it.
Well, there was one winter, like, first of all, Walmart, maybe they've tightened it a little bit, but Walmart used to have a very good return policy. Like, even if it was past, like, even if you had the receipt, like, even if it was past whatever date it said returned by on the receipt, they let you slide with it. So I remember I had this very tiny apartment in Richmond, Virginia, when I lived there, and I didn't have a lot of money, and I decided that I was just simply not going to pay for heat the entire winter, because the apartment was small enough that I could go, like, I went to Walmart and I spent, like, you know, I got a decent space heater. You know, I just heated the I just ran that instead of like paying for gas or oil or whatever it was. It would have been like ridiculously more expensive. I just ran this fucking space heater all winter, and then at the end of the winter, I just returned it to Walmart.
It's fucking awesome, dude.
Yeah, man. But
awesome.
You know, it was a bit of a pain in the ass because obviously even it being a small apartment, it, you know, couldn't heat the entire thing. You know, so like if I go to the bathroom or take a shower or something, I would bring it into the bathroom with me.
Chris, Jesus Christ, man. Jesus Christ.
Hey, man,
this is where these UL certifications really come into play. GFIs, you know, GFI
you know,
plugs.
The crazy thing is too, and like that wasn't even that long ago. That was perhaps 6 years ago, I think. And like that apartment, I think I paid $400 a month in rent. Like it was so dirt cheap compared to anything I could get around here in New York, obviously. But no, it was a pretty decent little apartment too. But I can't believe it was $400. Like that seems like I must be misremembering that, but I'm not. You know, it was only $400.
I don't doubt it, especially in Richmond. Jesus Christ.
And I mean, not a studio. You know, we had a kitchen and, you know, a separate bedroom and a living room and another little like living area. It had several rooms, the bathroom. Yeah, it was pretty decent.
I don't know, man. I wanted to save this like little tidbit of something that I learned that it fucking struck me like a ton of bricks. I want to like it's something I want to dive into more, maybe for like a solo episode or like a Patreon episode rather. But just I don't know, when we get into the material that we're talking about with like Blankfein, and obviously a lot of it revolves around the 2008 financial crisis, and I think it's a very artful thing that the reason that they call it like the financial crisis instead of like a Great Depression, which I think it more so is.
Oh yeah, I mean, I can think of lots of reasons why they choose to not call it that.
I know, and it's just, I don't know, man. It's just researching this, there was just so much information that came at me and hit me like a fucking ton of bricks, and I can't get it out of my head. Even like Thanksgiving, like Thanksgiving Day, I think like I put the turkey in the oven, and you know, it's like 3.5 hours, something like that. And I went upstairs and I just watched everything I could find on the 2008 financial crisis and the housing crisis and shit. And obviously, like a lot of that goes into Lloyd Blankfein. I don't know. Should we just like get into the material?
Sure. I was sort of mesmerized just there. I was just watching Shane twirl the ends of his mustache.
Yeah, I noticed that. You look like fucking Dr. Robotnik.
Snitches. With two snitches here. Oh my god. Sometimes I like to let it just grow a little long, and I can twirl it, you know, like a sort of mischievous vaudevillian, like fucking,
yeah.
You know, black hat. Or, you know, recently, I showed Carrie for the first time, Gangs of New York. Sing about William Cutting. William Cutting.
Yeah. Gavin McInnes.
The Butcher. No! No!
Ruin it.
No!
You gotta take the good with the bad, man. I'm sorry.
It's the scene where they're at like the Chinese pavilion, and he's like, "This is a night for Americans," and then he just shoves the thing up his ass.
Wait, what? I get...
Oh my god. I'm blacking out.
Oh god.
Well done.
Lame wannabe gangs of New York.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of that?
Oh,
That's
yeah.
some political satire for you, right
The Proud
there.
Boys?
That's an SNL skit waiting to be written,
Boom.
or like a Mad Magazine spoof.
Come on, Colin Jost. Figure this one out, buddy. Come on, Jost. I'm calling you out.
It is kind of funny. Like I don't quite see how like the Proud Boys reconcile Gavin McGinnis like several times like putting stuff in his ass on camera.
Dude,
I don't understand. I don't know. Hey man, but I mean, if I was a member of a violent white supremacist right wing street gang, I might have an issue with that. I just don't understand it.
I mean, it's like the same thing. Like, how do these like psycho right wingers who like think of Donald Trump as this weird dude with a rippling six pack? How do they reconcile that with the fact that he's a weird fancy boy from like Queens?
Oh yeah. Yeah, dude.
It's really bizarre.
I mean, his perfect life. I want to live in like the alternate timeline where, well, ideally, we would live in the timeline where he like died of a stroke in like 1998. But if we don't get that timeline, I would rather have the timeline that was like very nearly could have happened, where he's like a gossipy tabloid writer or something. Which is like, well, that would be his perfect life.
That's all he wanted.
Yeah.
And that's all he wanted, and he ended up as president.
Yeah.
But it's like, I love that hypocrisy. Like, the fucking like the preppers and shit, and like the guys that are like Michigan militia or whatever. I don't know if that's whatever, like the guys that like go out in the woods and do their own militias or go like literally hunt humans in the Texas border and shit. Most of them, if like there was societal collapse, which they like ostensibly want, they would just like die within 2 weeks without their like blood statin medication or like CPAP machine.
Oh my God.
There's an episode of Prepper. Remember the show Doomsday Preppers on the Discovery
Yeah,
Channel?
Sure.
hold on. We might be thinking of the same
I think
episode.
we might be. And there's one episode where this guy, like, he goes through the whole, like the typical formula those shows would follow, where he's like showing off like all his guns, he's showing off all his like food prep stuff, his gold coins and his silver coins and all that sort of stuff, and like all like squirreled away in his suburban McMansion, and then they do like the little like they're doing like a drill of what they would do, in the event of societal collapse or whatever. So they get their like little bug out bags together and they drive out in the desert, and then when they get out into the desert, they start doing like, this guy like starts doing like target practice with his kids and immediately shoots his finger off and faints. And it's like, dude, like even in your drill, like the society has collapsed. Within an hour, you are passed out in the desert, leaving your children to fend for themselves and be like, kidnapped by roving gangs of warlords or whatever.
There's another one. It wasn't the same one I was thinking of. There's another really fantastic one where there's a guy and his whole like thought process, because I guess he knows, like any community, all these preppers, like they know each other, they hang out, they have like a fucking meetup, or I guess they just bump into each other at whatever big box store, trying to fight each other to get the last water filter or whatever it is they're trying to hoard. But like, so he like knows everybody in his community who is also a prepper, and so his idea and the way he describes himself is he's like, I don't have to prep, I'm gonna be the apex predator. And so his idea is that like he purely invests in like weapons and stuff, and so when the apocalypse happens, he's just gonna take his like well-armed militia, which is like him and his like brother-in-law, and they're gonna like go into other people who they know they have prep stuff, and they're gonna take it forcibly from them. There's a few things funny about this, and I don't want to rag on the guy too much for this, but like if you look up this clip, he is not in peak physical shape. I'll just put it that way. So the idea that like he's gonna be like the wolf, like the lone wolf who's gonna be able to do this is already kind of laughable.
Yeah, all I need is my guns and my generator to power my CPAP machine.
Yeah. But But the second, and this is like where the clip is really funny, is that like he's convinced that like there's something bad about like the bulletproof vests, like Kevlar, like the ones that you buy are like they're too expensive or they're not like good enough. So he's like developed his own body armor, and it looks like just like plastic egg crates like put together. And he has this whole like fucking tiny, like, again, he's a large man, so he's got like what might be like a normal sized chest plate, but it fits maybe a third of the surface area of his chest, and he's like, this is gonna like stop bullets, and it really looks just like those plastic like egg crate meshed carton things that they like carry vegetables in.
Jesus.
And there's a point in the episode where he gets his like brother-in-law and he's like, shoot me point blank with a shotgun.
Stop.
and the brother-in-law's even like, are you like, we've never tested this. Like, do you really want me to do this? And so he's like, yeah. And so he goes to do it, and of course at the last minute the brother-in-law kind of like points it at an angle, but it like clearly just blows a giant fucking hole in this weird plastic thing he's got on. Jesus. And the guy's just like, yeah, no, this is good. Like this is gonna work.
He's gonna die.
Like it has holes in it. Like I'm not exaggerating. It has holes in it. But yeah, he's that's a really fun clip to watch.
Oh no, I know you've absolutely. Yeah, please send that to the DM. I have to watch that.
Yeah,
immediately. That is so. I would kind of like to just do a rewatch of that entire series.
Dude, there was one, I don't think I ever really saw most of the series, but I remember, I don't even, this must have been on years ago, and I saw this one guy who basically was going through his thing, and he was like, well, we've got the main compound, but you have to imagine that the main compound's going to be compromised because people know it, and these marauders are going to come and whatever. So we've got the secondary compound that's out in the hills, and this is like in fucking Nevada or Arizona or something like that. And he was like, but, that has its limits too, and eventually we're going to be found out because like the generator might produce smoke or heat or something like that. And then so he was like, and if it ends up,
I played Red Dead Redemption, man. I know smoke gives away your position.
And then he goes, well, and if it really goes wrong, and if that's been taken, and if I end up on my own and my family's been killed, he's like, I've constructed these, I think he called them like rat holes. He's like, I've constructed these rat holes in the roads, and I've got a few of them scattered around different parts of the property. And it's basically like, literally like a ditch, like a hole that he's dug out of the dusty road where he put like some burlap or canvas on top of it. And he was like, and I figure, given my body fat percentage, I could probably stay in one of these things for 2 weeks. And sometimes I stay in here for the whole day just like to test myself. And I'm just like, this guy's just sitting, just burying himself for a day at a time, like missing out on time with his family.
But why though? Like even in that kind of situation, like I have to imagine that even during societal collapse, like certainly even if you like your own home was compromised, you could find some other fucking shelter to move in on. Like even in his like fantasy world of how it's gonna go, he's imagining himself just fucking like in a fetal position in a hole in the desert eating MREs for weeks on end. Like, why?
Chris, if you're trying to apply logic to this, you're already losing the battle.
Oh God, I just remembered another really good show from that era, but I don't know if like.
No, please go on.
I'm just gonna mention it.
Please.
Did you guys ever watch Deadliest Warrior?
Yes.
No.
Where they would have like a fantasy like duel between like let's say a samurai and a Viking or something.
Yeah. So the idea was it ran a couple of series where it was like it would be like two different soldiers from history.
Yeah.
Usually from like some a medieval knight versus, like you said, like a samurai or like a Greek hoplite or something. But then the way they would like construct their, quote unquote, like scientific thing was they'd get like these experts who would come in, and then they'd all have like different weapons. So it'd be like a guy who studies like Greek spears, and then they'd like reconstruct it, and they'd like hang up like a pig, and then they would like stab the pig, and then they would like measure that somehow and be like, create some formula and be like, that increases his chance of success in the battle by X%. But the whole gimmick of it is they'd have the other team. So if it was like the Greek hoplite guy, they'd have like the samurai experts like looking on, being like, no way that spear's gonna hit that pig or whatever. And so they did that. They did a bunch of those, and at the end they would do these like shitty video reenactments. But eventually they like ran out of like ancient warriors to do, so they started doing like soldiers from the 20th century and the 21st 21st century, which at that point you've removed any amount of like tactical whatever. But there was like the SS, the Waffen SS versus the Viet Cong. And then the best one, and I was trying to find a clip of it and I can't find it anywhere. They did the IRA versus the Taliban.
Oh no.
And of course they made the IRA win. Like, it would have been so good if they had made like the Taliban one or whatever. And again, this was like, this was like in the mid 2000s, so it was still like very much that early period of the global war on terror. Like, so they had a team of experts on the Taliban, and they had to be like, when they were doing all the reenactment things, they had to be like, yay, go Taliban. Like, no, the Taliban could win. And the final reenactment is like, it's really schlocky and like, coated with all this weird racism and stuff, where like it's like 6 guys on each side and they're fighting in like a car park. And eventually, the Taliban, they like, through their trickery, they get it down to there's only one IRA soldier, but then like he like one by one takes out all 5 of the Taliban. And the last one, I'm pretty sure he shoots an RPG like right at the guy.
Oh dear.
And it's like a zoom in on his face before he explodes, and he's like, no! And he blows up. And they're like, IRA wins.
I mean, that is absurd, though. Like you were saying, like any type of like 20th century, 21st century like militia army.
Yeah.
So, like, once you bring fucking firearms into the scenario,
there's no skill or like, it's like what if they? I think because in some of them it would be like, because they would give them a kit where they'd get like 4 weapons. Some of them would have like landmines as their weapon. It's like, what is the skill involved in that? It's just one side mined the field before they fought. They win by default.
Now when I was a young boy, about the age of 5, my teachers taught me I could be the greatest man alive. They told me I could change the world, be whatever I wanted to be. There was no one in the world like me. Every one of us was so unique. I'd not be an average man. No, sir, I'd be no average man. So I had those big dreams.
Welcome back, everybody, to Eat the Rich. This is a show about our political economy, late-stage capitalism, and the millionaires, billionaires, and multinational corporations hell-bent on staving off its death rattle. I'm Dwight, and today we have with us Shane. And very disimpassioned, slightly concerning. And we have Chris.
Hey there, howdy, folks.
Nice. So today is a really interesting day that might take up an outsized amount of my brain space for sure. Today, February 13th, is the Thursday we're recording it, 2020, is the 10-year anniversary of Lloyd Blankfein's testimony in front of the Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations in 2012, February 13th, 2012. That is a really, I think, important day because basically he was sent to defend capitalism, sent to defend the major financial institutions' role in the 2008 financial crisis. What's amazing to me, as we'll get into, is not into so much detail because I think we owe it to everybody to give the gravity and the respect of the 2008 financial crisis, to give that its own kind of episode. And I'd like to go into that at some other time into more detail. And as we were discussing in the intro, and I don't even know if it's going to make it into it or whatever, like I just spent like the entirety of Thanksgiving morning just like learning about the 2008 financial crisis and the housing market and CDOs and shit like that. It's dense, but I think it's super important for us as kind of working people to understand how the machinations of how it worked. But ultimately, and Mr. Blankfein here did his testimony, most notably sparred with then Senator Carl Levin, who I believe was the chairman, maybe chairman or co-chairman of that committee. And we'll play some clips from it. In fact, maybe now would be a good time to just play the clip of it, so you just to set it up. Yeah, because it's not that long. It's like a minute or two or something. So I think just to give everybody a quick taste of what that moment was like in 2012 and him, let's listen to that clip now.
The people who were coming to us for risk in the housing market wanted to have a security that gave them exposure to the housing market, and that's what they got. The unfortunate thing, and it's unfortunate, but it doesn't, is that the housing market went south very quickly after some of these securities, not all of them, because some of them were done early, but they went, and so people lost money in it, but the security itself delivered the specific exposure that the client wanted to have.
You don't believe it's relevant to a customer of yours that you are selling a security to, that you are betting against that same security. You just don't think it's relevant and needs to be disclosed. Is that the bottom line?
Yes, and the people who are selling it in our firm wouldn't even know what the firm's position is.
You are taking a position against the very security that you are selling, and you are not troubled.
Senator, again,
And you want people to trust you.
Senator, I think people
Why would
trust
people?
us.
I won't trust you. If you came to me and wanted to sell me securities and you didn't tell me that you have a bet against that same security,
Senator,
you don't think that affects my
Senator,
thinking?
We want to talk about Lloyd Blankfein and his role as CEO of Goldman Sachs. So let me just set it up for you now. As it stands, he was the CEO of Goldman Sachs between 2006 and 2018. And as far as I can tell, you know, his profession now is to be a professional dick. Like, I don't think he really has a job, but he, as we'll go into, is certainly unhappy with the state of politics in this country, and certainly with the growing labor movement that's kind of teeming underneath the surface and everything. But let me give you a quick little background on his background. He is solidly a boomer. He was born in 1954. He's 65 now. Born in New York City, went to Harvard University, like all great folks, and went to law school and went into private practice for a short amount of time. After which, he became a precious metal salesman at a company, a commodities trading house, small one, called J. Aaron and Company. He got to Goldman Sachs because ultimately that the commodities trading firm was bought by Goldman Sachs in 1994 in an effort to diversify their portfolio and get into the precious metal space and increase their exposure there. Ultimately, he rose the ranks in Goldman Sachs, became chief operating officer. And when Henry Paulson got into the Bush administration as the Secretary of the Treasury, after Hank Paulson became the Secretary of the Treasury for the Bush administration, Lloyd Blankfein was crowned the CEO and chairman of Goldman Sachs and held that position all through the financial crisis until 2018. We don't want to go through the entirety of the financial crisis and what led up to it, but to just give you a taste of it, this is a clip from the Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations, also with Carl Levin, interviewing guys that look like, you know, the American Psycho business card scene where they're all sitting around the table. They just look like that, all these freaking suits. This was from 2012. Most notably speaking here was the head of the mortgage department named Dan Sparks, and we'll take a listen to that clip right now.
The context, let me tell you, the context is mighty clear. June 22 is the date of this email. Boy, that Timberwolf was one shitty deal. How much of that shitty deal did you sell to your clients after June 22, 2007?
Mr. Chairman, I don't know the answer to that, but the price would have reflected levels that they wanted to invest in.
Oh, of course,
at that time.
but they don't know what it says. You didn't tell them you thought it was a shitty deal?
Well, I didn't say that.
No. Who did? Your people, internally. You knew it was a shitty deal, and that's what your email shows.
I think the context, the message that I took from the email from Mr. Montag was that my performance on that deal wasn't good. And I think the fact that we had lost money related to that wasn't good.
How about the fact that you sold hundreds of millions of that deal after your people knew it was a shitty deal? Does that bother you at all? You sold to customers something?
I don't recall selling hundreds of millions of that deal after that.
All right, let's take a look. Exhibit 166, series of emails. First is June 26, 07. That's after June 22. July 1, 2007, tells the sales force the top priority is Timberwolf. Your top priority to sell is that shitty deal.
Mr.
Got it?
My comment was I didn't recall the sales.
You got it?
That we were trying to sell.
Okay, you're trying to sell a shitty deal, and it's your top priority. Come on, Mr. Sparks.
Well, Mr.
Should
Chairman,
Goldman Sachs be trying to sell, and by the way, it sold it, a lot of it after that date. Should Goldman Sachs be trying to sell a shitty deal?
well,
Can you answer
Again, I
that
didn't
one?
use those
Can you
words,
answer that
but-
one, yes or no?
there are prices in the market that people want to invest in things. I didn't use that term with respect to this deal.
I can't really overstate how bad of a thing this was. I mean, basically, I think I'm getting this right by saying this, and we can go into this in another time when we discuss the financial crisis more. But essentially, Goldman Sachs was basically bundling their shit that they didn't want to get rid of, knowingly selling it to their customers, and then betting against those same things. So they were making money on both sides. And I'd like to read from a quick article right now. That's just interesting. That just basically explains this, which was this is a Bloomberg article from 2016 by Chris Dolmetsch, called "Goldman Sachs Settles Suit Over CDO That Became Crash Symbol." Oh, that's funny. Crash symbol. Like, okay. So
Please insert a sound effect of a crash symbol here.
so it says Goldman Sachs Group and an Australian hedge fund agreed to end a $1 billion lawsuit over the sale of mortgage-linked securities, including an investment known as Timberwolf, that became a symbol of the financial crisis after it was cited in internal emails released by U.S. lawmakers. Basis Capital's Basis Yield Alpha Fund sued Goldman Sachs in 2010, accusing it of making false statements in connection with the sale of Timberwolf and another investment known as Point Pleasant. Both were collateralized debt obligations, or CDOs, a type of security stuffed with mortgages and their derivatives that caused billions in losses during the 2008 financial crisis. The fund sought more than $67 million it said it lost in the deal, and $1 billion in punitive damages. Michael Duvalli, a spokesman for New York-based Goldman Sachs, declined to comment on the agreement. Bruce Grace, that's a weird name, a lawyer for the Basis Yield Alpha Fund, didn't immediately respond to requests for comment on the settlement. The fund alleged that Goldman Sachs falsely claimed that the market for investments such as Timberwolf stabilized while knowing that they were likely to go into sharp decline. The securities plunged in value within weeks after it bought them, forcing the fund into insolvency. Goldman Sachs said at the time the suit was filed that the complaint was a misguided attempt by the fund to shift its investment losses to the bank. A federal judge threw out the case in 2010, and the fund then sued Goldman in state court. A judge denied the bank's bid to dismiss the case in October 2012, a ruling upheld by appeals court in January 2014. So notably absent from this is like the price that they paid in the public sphere. But the point being is that under Lloyd Blankfein's leadership, the entirety of the 2008 financial crisis took place. And you might ask yourself, how does he feel about this personally? And I'd like to illuminate that for you from a 2013 piece out of Fortune magazine, which was behind a paywall, but then I used a VPN, so I just want to let everybody know that I did not pay $1 to Fortune magazine. It's called Lloyd Blankfein. Financial crisis taught me a lot about myself. Lloyd Blankfein says the financial crisis was for him a period of personal growth. Millions of Americans were facing foreclosure.
That's nice, man.
Many, many more lost their jobs. Blankfein had to face stinging public criticism of his firm. The Goldman Sachs CEO, speaking at an industry conference on Tuesday, said there were times he thought about quitting. Now he's glad he didn't. You learned a lot about me and my firm, Blankfein told the audience of fellow Wall Streeters. But I found a lot of stuff about me, too. I learned that I have a much thicker skin than I thought. Blankfein also said that the financial crisis led to a bit of a wake-up call about income inequality. He said that was a good thing. The country does a great job of creating wealth, but not a great job of distributing it, said Blankfein. But I don't want to do something that stops our ability to build wealth. Blankfein expressed regret about the complicated mortgage trades his firm did in the run-up to the financial crisis. The transactions made Goldman Sachs as much as $13 billion, but they damaged the firm's reputation. They also led to losses for local governments and taxpayers around the country. Fucking A. Many have also said that the deals exacerbated the economic damage of the financial crisis. Goldman eventually agreed to pay $550 million fine to settle the charges, which, if you're looking at the fucking return on investment of a $13 billion profit, like, fuck you. Half a bill isn't going to do it. Blankfein's annual compensation dropped to $9 million in 2009 from $69 million the year before. But his compensation has rebounded. He's been paid $51 million in the past 3 years. Earlier this month, the Census Bureau said the nation's poverty rate was stuck at 16%, or 47 million people. Fucking unreal. And I just wanted to break, there's just another 2 paragraphs. So I just want to break here to go from one of my favorite statistics. It's fucking tragic, but one of my favorite statistics that was published in the Telegraph, I think, a few years ago, that says essentially 500,000 additional cancer patients died as a result of the financial crisis just due to lack of health coverage that they lost because of the financial crisis. 500,000 people died completely preventably from cancer, which they didn't have to. That article then goes to note as well, I think we've talked about it on the program before, did goes to note as well that nobody died in countries where there was universal health coverage. Nobody additional died as a result of the loss of health coverage in those countries, obviously, that had universal health coverage. So fuck that. It continues here. It says, on Tuesday, Blankfein also said he wishes he and his colleagues had done a better job back in 2009 of anticipating the criticism of Goldman and reacting quicker when it came. In late 2009, Blankfein told a reporter that he was just a banker doing God's work. It's clear now that the quote was taken out of context. What the fuck context would you need?
That's what you're saying as you're getting thrown out of, the temple for being a moneylender. Yeah.
No. Blankfein is not the first Wall Streeter to credit the financial crisis with making them a better person. I'm going to say that fucking sentence one more time. Blankfein is not the first Wall Streeter to credit the financial crisis with making them a better person. In what fucking way would that make you a better person?
I mean, Dwight, until you've had your name and reputation dragged through the mud and lost $60 million worth of income, leaving you only $9 million. Like, I want to see you, until you've walked a mile in his shoes, I'd like you to reserve judgment.
You're right. Don't knock it till you try it, I guess. Back in March, Erin Callan, the former CFO of Lehman Brothers, wrote in a New York Times op-ed, she now realizes there's more to life than work. She says she...
Oh, fuck you, dude. Oh, my God.
She says now she understands that powerful jobs and the wealth that comes from them do not come without a cost. Luckily for Callan, the financial crisis came along to teach her that. It wasn't as lucky for the rest of us. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God. Yeah. It takes a real fucking pair of cojones to be able to just like write this and publish it with a straight face.
I mean, again, it's that whole like bullshit thing about like conscience where it's like, no, like, I don't give a shit if you did something evil and it like totally changed who you were or what you made you think, I mean, that's assuming that these are genuine sentiments, right? And not just like crocodile tears. But like, even if they were genuine, like even if like, let's say like Blankfein like genuinely felt bad, right? First of all, would he continue to work at Goldman Sachs? Would he continue to like interact with the fucking social world the way he does? I mean, we'll probably get to this towards the end of the episode, but it's not like he took that as some sign that like, you know what, people like me maybe have like too much say in things, when he's like trying to fucking influence things now, not just through the fucking, machinations of the bank that he's worked for, but like just publicly and being able to throw around his money. I mean, the dude is worth, I think it's at least $1 billion.
1.1 billion.
Yeah, like how bad could you really feel about anything ever with that kind of money?
No way.
Give it away. Give all of your money away if you feel bad about it.
He doesn't. He doesn't. I think there was like a British politician that was talking about like, I think it was like Tony Blair recently, about how Tony Blair came out and talked about something, and he said it in a very understated British way that was like, if I were in Tony Blair's position, I would spend the rest of my retirement in quiet contemplation, right? Just like, right. Hold yourself up in the country. Don't fucking ever talk to any one of us again. Yeah. Right. Like right. In a just world, you wouldn't be around, or you would be in The Hague, right? But like,
go to the Southwest, dig yourself one of the rat holes, climb into it, and just live off of rations. Right. Wander to the Joshua tree and seek enlightenment or whatever.
Yes.
Like, leave the rest of us the fuck alone then.
Yeah.
Like, if you genuinely had remorse.
But instead we live in the reality where fucking like George W. Bush gets to go like fucking do the nay or whatever on the Ellen DeGeneres show.
Right, yeah, exactly. No, I was thinking about that exact same thing, because it's like the whole idea that like, with his fucking paintings where he's like, oh, I feel bad now. Who gives a shit how you feel? Yeah. People are dead because of your action. Yeah. And it's the same thing with Blankfein. I mean, there is as much blood on his hands as any one of these other crooks. And yet they get to what? Like, oh, yeah, act in this weird fucking, I don't know, like there's this like bullshit kind of quasi-spiritual element to this idea of like, oh, I can, I've I've really come out the other end learning something. What did you learn? Name one thing you learned. I guess, there's more to life than work?
Fucking idiot.
Not in the gulag. You live to work.
In a just world, it would be hard labor. I was thinking about that today. Like, I couldn't get that figure out of my head. It's like 48,000 people die every year due to lack of health insurance. Right? And the same thing that we were just talking about with the cancer treatment thing. Just on a regular course of a year, because we don't have universal health coverage in this country, and you're just in the American Thunderdome of fucking capitalist health coverage. 48,000 people die. And when you ask, like, I had this like fucking pretend argument in my head from some like, fucking moderate liberal or whatever that would want to argue against Medicare for all. Say like, well, 48,000 people in a country of 340 million, I don't know, like, is it really worth it? But you can't walk with me for a second. You can't isolate it to one person dying. Think about a member of your family. Think about your mother or your father or a brother or your spouse or your child that dies. And the course of grief that even just any death, right? Like if you have a grandparent that died or an elderly relative. I mean, that's a process of grief, let alone the process of incurring a terminal illness that's extremely taxing on the family. And there is no universal child care in this country, and there is no like elderly care in this country. It's just kind of, it's on your shoulders in one way or the other. So it's not just the individual that dies, which is the loss. It's the burden on their entire families, let alone the fucking depression and just the entire apparatus of pain and grief that comes with a death, especially when you're sitting there clenching your fist, angry at a fucking insurance company because you know that the thing is entirely preventable or manageable.
Yeah. I was going to say, you add to that the guilt and frustration as well that comes apart when you have to make those kinds of calculated financial decisions about life and death that nobody should have to make. Like it's, all of the things you just said are always going to be present, right? When it comes to suffering and when it comes to particularly disease and terminal disease. Like those are all like things that no matter how just or equal the society, like people will have to come to terms with one another. But like then on top of it, this like incredible frustration, and again then the weird kind of bargaining you have to do in your head about do we set money aside for this, or like the resentment that then comes out of it. It's like, well, should we try to keep like Nana alive for another year and like totally eradicate our retirement savings in doing so, or do we make this other kind of horrible calculated decision, and like what that does to people, and not just in the short term of like whatever the period of grief is, and by short term I mean like a year or 2 years or whatever, but like the way that shapes the entire relationship that you have with your social environment and with the people in your family and the way that you view people, and it turns everything into these like weird petty transactions. And for what? So that this motherfucker can have a yacht? Yeah. Like, that's it. Like, what is the other consequence?
Another, and it's another yacht, right? It's just another yacht. It doesn't make fucking sense, man. And to fucking gloat, and then, which we'll get into in a minute, like, try to use your outsized wealth and influence to stop the movement of people trying to change the system and better their lives, begging for their fucking lives, is fucking, what the, the answer to your question, Shane, he didn't learn a fucking thing. No. He didn't learn a fucking thing because he didn't have to pay the personal toll that the rest of us did. Yeah, I didn't get to see my kids because I was at board meetings and shit. Fuck off. Fuck off. Then don't do the job. Go fuck yourself. Give us your money.
I sometimes think about this, like, and I mean, we've obviously talked to a certain extent about this on the show before, but could you, like, imagine having, like, $1 million?
No.
Like, if I had $1 million, I would never work again. Like, are you kidding me? I would, like, hang out. I would do, like, obnoxious critiques of movies and books. And, like, I would just be like, fuck it, I'm good. But, like, these guys who make several million in bonuses, or just as a fucking yearly, package, a yearly salary or whatever it is that they get, and they're complaining about like I don't get to spend enough time with my family. You can do anything you want. You can go into space. Like, what are you doing? What are you pretending that like it's really hard for me too? No, it isn't. Anything you want will be at your house within 30 minutes.
Yeah.
At any one of your multiple houses.
It's true.
You could say, I want a solid gold diamond. A ludicrous thing that doesn't even exist. That would require medieval alchemy to fucking exist. And someone would make it happen for you within a business day. It's a ridiculous prospect that any one of these people can ever claim that, like, oh, you know, we actually, because you see all these op-eds and things that, I'm sorry for going on this tangent, but it just struck this nerve with me. You see these things that are put out where it's like, actually, like, rich people work harder, or like, you know, rich people are more stressed out. I don't care! Zero sympathy! Because that's a choice at a certain point. It's not a choice if you're living paycheck to paycheck. If you have enough money in the bank to literally kill God, then it is a choice for you to not fucking, you know, spend time doing recreational activities or whatever.
You know, what's even more pointed, and, you know, fuck it, we'll make this point of conclusion early on in the episode. I mean, for a guy, Lloyd Blankfein, who grew up in Brooklyn, whose dad was worked for the post of the USPS, and whose mom was a receptionist, who was working class, didn't have much, and grew up in public housing. There's a term for him, you know, having this outsized influence and trying to keep the rest of us down while he is hoarding all of his wealth. He's a class traitor. He has the ability to change our lives every day and does nothing about it. And in fact, actively tries to stop our movement. So fuck him. So to kind of put this into context, and especially into a timeline that we may recognize, ultimately in 2012, this was one of the conclusions that the Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations, the chairman Carl Levin, put out. He issued a statement. This was August 2012, a statement on the DOJ's announcement regarding Goldman Sachs. He said, "Our investigation of the origins of the financial crisis revealed wrongdoing and failures among mortgage lenders, banking regulators, credit rating agencies, and investment banks. One of those investment banks, Goldman Sachs, created complex securities that included junk from its own inventory that it wanted to get rid of. It misled investors by claiming its interests in those securities were aligned with theirs, while at the same time it was betting heavily against those same securities, and therefore against its own clients to its own substantial profit. Its actions did immense harm to its clients and helped create the financial crisis that nearly plunged us into the second Great Depression, which, like we said, I think we're still in. Those are the facts that the subcommittee found. Whether the decision by the Department of Justice is the product of weak laws or weak enforcement, Goldman Sachs's actions were deceptive and immoral. That's why I and others fought so hard to include tough new conflict of interest provisions in the Dodd-Frank Wall Street reform law to help ensure that Wall Street could no longer engage in such blatant behavior. Yesterday's announcement makes it even more important that regulators implement Dodd-Frank with rules that do not water it down, and that they enforce those rules with vigor. The integrity of our financial markets and the strength of our economy demand that we make sure the actions of Goldman Sachs and other recently discovered misdeeds by financial institutions are ended." So basically, in that statement, he's saying, like, thank God we have Dodd-Frank to at least do what the Department of Justice is unwilling or unable to do. We can do a whole episode on Dodd-Frank, but I will say this. Since the passage of Dodd-Frank, Republicans have called for partial or total repeal of the bill. On June 9th, 2017, the Financial Choice Act legislation undid significant parts of Dodd-Frank and passed the House 233 to 186. On March 14th, 2018, the Senate passed the Economic Growth, Regulatory Relief, and Consumer Protection Act, exempting dozens of U.S. banks from the Dodd-Frank Act's banking regulations. What does that mean specifically? Basically, the Dodd-Frank bill said that any banking institution with a market cap $50 billion or up was subject to these regulations. And that's like most banks, except for maybe like these tiny ass community banks in fucking, South Dakota or something. But they raised that threshold up to 250 billion. So that's why it opened up absolute masses of banks that are now not subject to the Dodd-Frank bill. There's a bank called Signature Bank that's in New York City. They have a market cap of $50 billion. So now they are exempt from the Dodd-Frank bill. And who is on the board? One person is Ivanka Trump.
Okay.
Oh.
And the other one is Barney Frank himself is on the board.
Curious. Very curious.
It's fucking unbelievable, man. You can't fucking make it up. So, this is good. Yeah, no, there's just, I looked up Signature Bank, and there's just something here that just says West End Financial Advisors LLC Ponzi scheme. Basically, Signature Bank helped this dude do a Ponzi scheme and like helped him shift around money and shit. Yeah, we could go. There's every fucking thread you pull, it's just worse and worse and worse. But we'll leave it at there for now, for simplicity and for the sake of this episode. So that's what happened with Lloyd Blankfein in the 2008 financial crisis, to say the least.
Well, good thing ever since 2008, Lloyd Blankfein hasn't been involved in anything bad.
Well,
that's my segue. See what I did there? See what I did there? So I wanted to talk about, and this is like, the more I started pulling this apart, the more it became like sort of similar to what Dwight was just saying about like thinking about doing a sort of standalone episode just about the 2008 crash. I've been kind of pulling the thread of this 1MDB scandal from Malaysia. That stands for is One Malaysia Development Berhad scandal. And Goldman Sachs and eventually Lloyd Blankfein's involvement in it as well. There's so much at play here, and if I'm being entirely honest, I don't have a full understanding of the entire timeline of this as of time of recording, but it's something that I'm definitely interested in looking into more.
Yeah, I was looking at a few articles about this earlier today, many of which were behind paywalls, so it was like hard for me to get like a full grasp of what any of this is even about.
That was I was sort of lamenting to my co-host before that I had a bunch of stuff queued up that I was going to talk about, and then I had to restart my computer for some stupid audio reason, and when I came back on, all of those articles are now behind like the paywalls where they're like, oh, you've read the one article you're allowed per month.
Right.
But I've been able to cobble together elements of the story that are relevant to today's episode, and in general, it's such a weird cast of characters, and there's one in particular sort of side character, at least in terms of today's episode, that I'll talk about a little, that might deserve his own episode. Because the other thing is that this scandal is still kind of developing. Like, as far as I can tell, this is essentially like a banking development fund scandal in Malaysia that now has stretched back like over the course of a decade. It started to trickle, or it started to become more publicly aware around like 2015. And the crux of it is that this One Malaysia Development Berhad like group, it's sort of state trust that was set up by the Malaysian government as like a way to kind of pool and aggregate different financial resources and different like investments in order to, do like state development. So sort of like a national bank development project thing, but like deeply tied to financial capital. So instead of just being like, we're gonna do, a big, direct state project where like the government directly is going to finance the construction of, new infrastructure or new housing or whatever. It's like, it's all pooled and tied together with like a variety of banks to create different incentives and stuff for these banks to, invest in developing certain areas of Malaysia. And the reason why it's a scandal is apparently the entire thing was just like a slush fund set up by the then prime minister in order to funnel money to him and also a variety of other actors in sort of Malaysia's elite.
What?
And so, yeah, they just basically, it was just like a big slush fund to launder a huge amounts of money. We're talking like to the tune of, I think, around like almost $5 billion into the private accounts of the prime minister, of and then like election campaignings and stuff like that, but as well as a variety of other financial elites who were attached to this in one way or another.
Jesus Christ.
And the reason why it's relevant for today's episode is that Goldman Sachs was like the one who was financing all of which is just kind of incredible. So I'm just going to read from this piece from Reuters. This is from last year in October 2019. Malaysia has discussed a $2 billion to $3 billion settlement with Goldman Sachs over the U.S. bank's alleged role in the 1MDB scandal. Bloomberg reported on Wednesday less than half the sum the Southeast Asian nation had demanded earlier. So basically, as a result of this scandal, like the prime minister had lost the most recent election, which was in 2018. There's a new prime minister, and now the government is seeking like reparations and, attempting to hold a variety of the financial institutions, Goldman Sachs included in that, responsible and basically pay back, these huge amounts of state money that they helped these elites abscond with. So back to the article here. Investigators in Malaysia and the United States say about $4.5 billion was misappropriated from the now defunct state investment fund, One Malaysia Development Berhad, set up in 2009 by former Prime Minister Najib Razak, who has been slapped with several charges. Last year, Malaysia filed criminal charges against Goldman over its role as underwriter and arranger of 3 bond sales that raised $6.5 billion for the fund. Prosecutors in August filed criminal charges against 17 current current and former directors at Goldman's units.
Whoa.
Malaysia's finance minister said in January the government would be ready to discuss dropping the charges against Goldman if it agreed to pay $7.5 billion in reparations. Goldman has not commented on any figure, but said last year it had set aside $1.8 billion to cover potential losses related to the legal proceedings. So this goes on in some of the more details about the wrangling that they've had with Goldman. As far as I can tell, this is still kind of up in the air. Even though they've sort of reached a settlement, obviously this is only like a small portion of the amount of money that was taken out. Again, because this is another one of these like public-private partnerships where you mix together state money with finance,
right?
Investments and stuff in order to do these development projects, and basically all these rich people just like fucking were using it and were sucking the money out of it. And Goldman facilitated that as essentially a launderer.
Fucking hell.
Now, in sort of looking into this, and again, this has been a story that's breaking for years. It may be that some of our listeners know something about it. I've seen a few notices of it in the press over the last couple of years, but the really interesting character here is this guy named Chow Lo. And again, I want to just apologize in advance. I'm not super familiar with Malaysia. I do believe that is how you pronounce his name. Some of the names in this, if I get wrong, I'm sorry in advance. You can go ahead and DM the podcast account.
No,
there.
no.
No. But this guy Chow Lo, who also interestingly is an alum from the Wharton School of Business.
Fucking Lord.
You've been. He's like a middle-aged financial playboy that somehow is like super tied in. I was trying to find his like net worth and I couldn't find it, but many people have called him the mastermind of this scheme, and he was one of the people who was like siphoning money out of the funds to purchase basically the same kind of embezzlement shit that always happens, for either political favors or just personal things. Like he bought himself a yacht and a number of these other expensive things. Interestingly, and this is what really caught my eye, he also financed with money from this fund the film The Wolf of Wall Street by Martin Scorsese.
No.
Oh, I have heard this. Okay.
Yeah.
I've heard that.
Fucking serious?
Yeah. So
That's right.
Obviously that film, by Scorsese is sort of about Stratton Oakmont and this weird kind of like junk bond sales company that was like super notorious. I'm sure many people have seen the film. The added now great thing about it is it was entirely financed by this corruption scheme by these rich financial guys. Now the other interesting thing about Chow Lo is that he is still on the run.
What?
Yeah, he's still like at large.
Oh, he's exercising?
No, he's like the Malaysian authorities and the United States have been like trying to track him down. It's believed that he just is like in various places in China. Like he goes from city to city. I mean, again, he absconded with all this money and he still has most of it.
Have they checked any rat holes in Arizona or Nevada?
Here's the best part. He has a website. It's www.chowlow.com, and that's JHO-LOW.com, in which it's like a site about how innocent he is and why he's in hiding.
What?
And he has so much money that not only is he on the run, but he has like a whole PR team who not only set this up for him, but like fields questions for the press. So you can like contact them. Apparently, they've got some links at the bottom. I don't know if they go to
Yeah,
this.
Definitely don't go to his Twitter account.
He has a Twitter account.
Which is JHO_LOW.
Let's get him on the show. I'm looking at his website right now.
How hard can it be? I don't think his DMs are open.
So, again, he's a super interesting kind of colorful character in this like horribly corrupt machine. And so to tie it back around, this is an article 2018.
Oh my God.
BusinessTimes.com.
I'm sorry, can I just stop you for 1 second?
Yeah, please.
This is so fucking wild. He did a post in 2015 that says, "The path to ending #cancer remains difficult. Thankfully, MD Anderson offers support, inspiration, and insight here." And then the official MD Anderson Cancer Center, which is one of the best cancer centers in the world out of Houston, just replied saying, "At Joe Low, thank you for sharing CancerWise and for doing everything you help us do to #end cancer, Joe."
Yeah, I mean, I think he, when you like look him up, one of the things also it says on his site that he's a philanthropist.
Yep.
I'm sure he used
of course, that's the first thing.
Huge amounts of money that he just absconded with to like, donate to a variety of places. And he was like a big player in Malaysia and the international like finance scene in Asia and, in the global market and stuff. So I'm sure he has connections with all variety of these kinds of elites and is giving money to a variety of things. And to that point, again, to return to this article, and the headline just tells you everything. So this is from Business Times. from 2018.
I'm sorry.
November 28th.
I'm sorry if I may. I'm looking at his website, and there's a Q&A section, and like the very first question is Mr. Lowe innocent of the charges brought against him by the U.S. Department of Justice?
What's the answer?
What does it
Well,
say?
I mean, the short answer, of course, is yes. I mean, it's a little bit longer than that. Yeah.
So anyway, the title of this article is Goldman Chairman Lloyd Blankfein met privately with Chow Low.
You fucking serious?
Yeah. So I'm just going to read here. One day in December 2012, a young Malaysian VIP entered the gleaming headquarters of Goldman Sachs in New York. The man, Chow Low, a financier with close ties to Malaysia's prime minister, was there for a private meeting with one of the most powerful people on Wall Street, Goldman's longtime chairman and chief executive, Lloyd Blankfein. Nearly 6 years later, Lau is an international fugitive accused of being the mastermind in a multi-billion dollar fraud involving a Malaysian government investment fund. Goldman's role in supporting the fund, known as One Malaysia Development Berhad, or 1MDB, has brought intense scrutiny from federal prosecutors who this month unsealed criminal charges against 2 former Goldman investment bankers and implicated a senior executive. The meeting between Lau and Mr. Blankfein, described to the New York Times by 3 people familiar with it, shows the expanding scope of a scandal that is rocking Goldman. Federal prosecutors are examining the 2012 meeting as they conduct a criminal investigation of the bank, 2 of the people said. And the existence of a face-to-face meeting between Goldman's chief executive and a man accused of being at the center of a sprawling fraud undercuts an argument the bank has made that its problems stem from the actions of a small number of rogue employees.
Oh, of course.
So there's a lot more to this. I saw another article that said that there may have been at least a second meeting several years later between Blankfein and Chow Low. Of course, Blankfein says, he wasn't there. I'm going to take a line that Chris said in an earlier episode where he said, make what you will of that, but I am nonetheless going to speculate that he obviously was there and it did happen and he is guilty.
Allegedly.
In terms of how this is actually affecting Mr. Blankfein now, okay, so this is from a New York Times article from last year, and I'm just going to read from the center of it. It's mostly a lot of recapping of the stuff that I just said. So it's talking about Goldman. The bank is looking at paying several $1 billion in fines and restitution. Toward the end of last year, Goldman began setting aside money for the case, which is being pursued by federal prosecutors and bank regulators, as well as authorities in Malaysia. Goldman is eager to avoid a more punitive resolution, like a deferred prosecution agreement. In a deferred prosecution, the authorities ultimately decline to pursue charges if a company complies with certain requirements, such as overhauling its compliance operation and paying hefty fines. So basically the same kind of thing that happened to them after the 2008 crash. Where it's just like, oh yeah, we'll fix ourselves, don't worry, and then we'll pay a certain amount of fines. One former top Goldman banker has already pleaded guilty to federal charges in connection with the investigation, and a junior banker has also been charged. Federal prosecutors have said that at least $2.7 billion was looted from the fund by people close to Malaysia's former prime minister. A financier, Chow Low, who was charged with the fraud, is a fugitive believed to be in China. Goldman Sachs was the primary banker for 1MDB, helping to sell nearly $6 billion in bonds. The bank has said it regretted the fraud carried out by its former partner, Tim Leicester, but has said that it followed appropriate procedures and was cooperating with the investigation. The bank has said the scheme was carried out by rogue employees who deceived management at Goldman. And so, what are these internal things that they're doing? And they're doing something that's called a clawback provision, which is a new term that I hadn't heard. And basically what that means is they're reducing bonuses for the top management. Right? Because the idea is you give a bonus to your top managers, like CEO, your CFO, or whatever, on a yearly basis to reward them for their good work. So because of the misdeeds that have been uncovered, even if you're claiming like, oh, I had nothing to do with it, still as the manager, you're supposed to bear responsibility for that, right? So the firm is saying, okay, we're going to reduce your bonuses. The question is, what does that reduction actually look like? So again, continuing with the article here, the bank said that the clawback provision would give the board the flexibility to reduce the size of the award to senior executives if necessary as a result of the 1MDB case. Mr. Solomon replaced Mr. Blankfein as Goldman's chief executive on October 1st. Mr. Blankfein stayed on as chairman of the board through the end of the year. The board set Mr. Solomon's total compensation package for 2018 at $23 million, a $2 million increase from the prior year. Mr. Blankfein's total compensation for 2018 was $20.5 million.
Jesus.
So, that gives you a sense of, how they're internally dealing with this this case. And again, their stance is, we need to punish our executives because even though the executives were not at the head of organizing this scandal, it was still going under their watch. So as a result, instead of giving them some radical increase, we're just going to give them a minor increase in their salary.
Unfucking believable.
a mere $2 million increase, which I assume for them, similar to what happened at the 2008 crash, really is going to teach them a lesson.
Those little pobrecitos.
So, again, that might be something it would be fun to look into as the story develops. Maybe we could get a Chow Lo watch going to see, where he spots, where he's spotted next.
I was just looking here on the website. There is a contact Chow Lo section. So
get him on the show. Let's see if he wants to come on.
I'm serious.
Please do not flood his PR emails with calls to come on our show.
Yeah, no. Don't do that, please.
It's been suggested to me as who we could literally probably get on our show, but I don't want to, but I actually think that we probably could if we wanted to interview John McAfee.
Oh shit, man. Oh god. You're probably right, but fuck, at what cost? Just like personal toll.
Right.
So, I just in the interest of time to kind of get to a point to wrap up, this is one of the reasons why, I think we were all considering doing this guy for today's show is he cropped up on my feed at least a few days ago.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of people, active on Twitter have seen this and already replied with a gif of a guillotine or a gritty meme or something. But a couple of days ago, Lloyd Blankfein just tweeted out, if Dems go on to nominate Sanders, the Russians will have to reconsider who to work for to best screw up the U.S. Sanders is just as polarizing as Trump, and he'll ruin our economy and doesn't care about our military. If I'm Russian, I go with Sanders this time around.
It's so good to see him lashing out in this sort of way because he's like a fucking cornered animal. You know what I'm saying? They are terrified. They are terrified, and he's terrified to the point where he feels like he has no recourse except to just start whining about it. And it's so good. It's so satisfying.
They're shook.
Yeah, they're scared, man.
They're shook. Same thing with fucking Bloomberg getting in, spending fucking gazillions of dollars just to do this. They're shook. They're reading the tea leaves, right? They know how this goes.
Yeah.
In history, when there's been inequality, I'm not a historian to know, what the level of inequality it takes, but, the aristocracy in certain periods of history, and I'm just talking historically here, have had their heads separated from their necks. I'm sure in even periods before those periods, people thought that it was, the most modern times that had ever come. So they, things like that couldn't possibly happen. But they get what's going on. They understand the fact that capitalism as a term is even being brought up as something that we can even consider is a huge step for us. Mm-hmm. It's not unreal.
Did you mean to say socialism?
No. The fact that capitalism itself is being discussed is a huge step.
Oh, okay. It's
a huge step. Obviously, for the entirety of capitalism's existence, socialism has been a shadow, behind it as a critique to say, better things are possible. And basically, guys like Blankfein, guys like Bloomberg, the fucking Leon Cooperman dude. Oh, that's the guy that cried at the idea. Maybe we can insert the clip here. It's so.
Wait, is this something that just happened?
This wasn't. No, it was like a few months ago, but it's fucking hilarious.
The stock market's at a record high. The economy is growing. I mentioned a moment ago, 5 million more people at work created in his presidency. We have a record high employment, record low unemployment amongst minorities. I've taken the tough path of opening up trade dialogue with China. I focused the discussion on illegal immigration. Okay, I reduced government red tape and promoted deregulation. I bolstered our defense, national defense. His deportment is not presidential, and we need a unifier in that position, and because the country is being torn apart. So let him make his own decision. I am not in favor of all this impeachment inquiry. I want the American people to decide in November of 2020 what the future should be.
I think, I think it's kind of obvious people can not only see the emotion on your face, but hear it in your voice. when you talk about this, Lee. Why?
I care. That's it.
But in all that you have said of where the economy is, where the stock market is, the wealth that has been created since the president was inaugurated through the stock market appreciation, you still think it would be a better idea if he did not run for re-election at this particular time?
What I think I said, you know, you're looking to get me into trouble. What I said was, if he was not prepared to change his dialogue and his treatment of people, okay, he could accomplish what he's accomplished by being presidential.
And he fucking balls about it. He's like, they're scared. They're scared. You know, they're saying like, we're very concerned about the trajectory of this country, and you can't be so radical and you can't just tear the system down. It's like, I would probably be saying that too if I were in that position, right? Because it's in your class interest. You fucking benefit from it. I mean, I want to be clear. I would not. Dwight would give away the money. Keep a little for myself to build a little, rat hole property in Nevada, but
That's where the Patreon fund is going, just a shitload of rat holes.
The Patreon, my share is going to my fucking doomsday bunker and lots of Jim Baker food buckets.
I think, the other way to contextualize this is to bring back, what Dwight was saying earlier about this whole fucking bullshit idea that he learned his lesson or had some reimagination or spiritual reinvigoration after the 2008 crisis or whatever the fuck it is, where it's like we were saying, didn't just go away. Then just realize that you're part of the problem and not part of the solution. Even if you're not going to do anything materially good, just step away. But these guys are incapable of fucking doing that. They are. I mean, the way that tweet is constructed is 100% built around this bad faith, resuscitation of this stupid Russiagate nonsense, trying to apply it to Bernie Sanders, and then also the implication there is, he hates our military. What the fuck is that about?
What the fuck is that
what is
about?
He doesn't give a shit.
No.
He doesn't care. Who is he? And I just dropped a picture.
Yep.
Because I had to check to see if this was the case. I hadn't checked before we were doing the episode, but it just occurred to me. I dropped a picture in the DM for you guys to look at. Chris, I would like specifically you to look at this if you can.
Let me try to look at it right now. By the way, I mean, he said that, that is after, there was just a week or two ago, there was that story that came out about how Bernie Sanders has more donations from active duty military members than any other candidate, even Trump.
Wow, yeah.
Let me see here.
Just watching Chris's face.
Oh, yeah, no, of course, yeah. Yeah, no, this is what I want to be the episode title card. Yeah, so this is what I'm looking at right now.
What are we looking at, Chris?
What I'm looking at right now is a picture of Lloyd Blankfein standing next to one Ghislaine Maxwell of Jeffrey Epstein fame, who, by the way, it should be pointed out that he, along with Michael Bloomberg, who also has a picture with Ghislaine Maxwell, Lloyd Blankfein appears to be shorter than her. So,
I don't think he's a terribly
point
tall
that
man.
out there as well.
I don't think he's a terribly tall man.
Yeah, again, I mean, and I've said this time and time again, we should just, as a society, have just a standing rule that if you have been photographed, smiling and, it's in a fucking suit at some gala event next to either Jeffrey Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell, you just have to fuck off.
Yeah, you
don't even get the opportunity to explain yourself. You just have to fuck off. I think that would be a very easy rule if we could just implement that.
Yeah, man. Yeah, you gotta go. You gotta go. There's no space for you here, man. You gotta get out. You gotta get out of here, man. You gotta go.
You're channeling what's his face from Aliens right now.
Who?
Game over, man.
Oh, fucking Bill Paxton.
Yeah.
Oh, game over, man. Oh, man. Oh shit, man! God, he played the dumbest fuck on that too. What's the android's name?
Data.
Wally.
No, fucking never mind. Jesus. Forget it, man. Forget it. Film Twitter, don't come after me. Fucking Aliens sucked. Aliens sucked. Alien changed my life.
I've never seen either of them.
Aliens is great. What are you talking about?
Aliens?
The first two are both great.
The first one is incredible.
Yeah, the first two are really good.
The first one is incredible. The second one is good. It's horrible.
Oh, you kidding me? It's so good.
It's fucking...
It's an action movie. There's no suspense.
The first one is not an action movie. The first one's suspense.
No, the first one is a horror movie, and the second one is an action movie based on the horror concept.
That's fair to say.
That's fine.
Again, I don't fucking know. Like,
it's the same with Terminator. The first one is really a horror movie, and the second one is an action movie.
Oh, they're both James Cameron too, no?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Got it. Stay cool, folks.
Wait, before we do before anyone stays cool, remain tense.
I'm hot. You know.
Remain tense, listeners. I just want to return to a bit that we've kind of dropped a little bit in recent episodes, but we used to do in the beginning, where we'd say like, what in a just society. How would we treat Lloyd Blankfein? And in my estimation, what I think should happen is he should have to fight each of the deadliest warriors in succession.
We send him out in the desert to do target practice with the guy who shot his own thumb off.
No. Allegedly parody.
Equip him with the egg crate Kevlar and put him into battle with a samurai, a Greek hoplite, and then a group of 6 Taliban.
Or how about this for like one of the episodes of the Deadliest Warrior show or whatever, like
Nope. And don't everybody ask for is this going to be in the Patreon content? Fuck that. No.
Please bleep that.
I ain't going down.
That. Don't cut it.
No.
Bleep it. It's so funny.
It's good. It's fine. You don't have to cut it.
Please. God. Oh, fucking stay cool, folks. I'm done with this, man.
You are now allowed to stay cool, soldier.
Stay cool. I feel 10 more tense than I was fucking 15 seconds ago. God damn it. Stay cool.
It's time to push up profits. It's time to keep them tax. It's time to fleece the Muppets who invest with Goldman Sachs. It's time to lobby Congress to keep regulation lax. Must not put off the Muppets who invest with Goldman Sachs. We laugh at them discreetly. We sneer at every sale. We sell them toxic assets, then bet on them to fail. It's time to turn the thumb screws. It's time to oil the racks. It's time to squeeze some pennies. Why don't we squeeze some pennies? Let's go and squeeze some pennies from the aspirational, ostentational, desperational, destitutional Muppets who